Well, hey everybody, welcome back to 30, Wordy, and Friendship. I'm Whitney Ensom.
And I'm Alia Bogdanoff.
And this is the episode where we talk about joy, choosing joy. So, we're happy you all are back. We're glad you're following, and let's get started.
So, Whitney, what does joy mean to you? I know it's a really broad topic, and it's a really broad word, but let's make it a little more specific today.
So, joy, I feel like that's, I wrote some notes because, I'm a note writer. I don't fly by the seat of my pants.
I'm prepared.
Thanks.
I'm a seat pant flyer, if that makes any sense.
I love you for that. I will never be like that. So I think for me, joy is a choice. I think there's some, we'll talk about later about hardships and things, but just joy is a choice in the midst of difficult things that happen. Maybe we have a loss. Maybe we feel betrayed. Something difficult in our life happens. And choosing to look at what's still there and be present in the moment with the people and the things that are in my life gives me joy. It is an active choice. It's easy for me to focus on those difficult things and feel overwhelmed by them and just sort of feel trapped. But it's something that I've really tried doing. I know it's kind of weird. I don't think you can do joy. I do joy.
You can do joy.
Let's do joy together.
That's what you said. That's so bad, Whitney. Why would you say that? I said that's what she said.
You said that.
You said we should do joy together.
Anyway.
Sorry, I've been watching Office too much lately. I know you have too.
Yes, okay. I watch reruns. There was a time in my life where I watched too many reruns. And I wasn't choosing joy. I was on my couch. So I think joy has been a choice to face those difficult things and to see what's in my life that gives me a sense of purpose, that people who lift me up and who encourage me. And when things fall apart, or at least I perceive them to, because it's sometimes a big deal and sometimes I've made it a big deal. Well, there's some things that have really been a big deal in my life recently. So how do I choose joy? It's not happiness. Joy isn't happiness for me. It's not circumstantial.
No.
And for me, joy is connected with my faith, that that God gives me peace when difficult things happen and restores my joy. I've seen him do that. And so joy is a result from my relationship with him and my choosing to see what's in my life that's great going on.
Yeah.
Hope that made sense.
That made a lot of
sense. Okay, very good. Tell me about yours.
Joy to me is not ignoring hardship or avoiding hardship. It's walking through and seeing the other side of hardship. So for me, it's about, I think I've told myself many times in my life, I will be happy when, I will be happy when I live in a nice house. I will be happy when I can afford things. I'll be happy when, I can have that nice purse or that nice, those nice shoes. A lot of it was based around getting things that I wanted. Yeah. And I think for a long time, I really confused that with joy. And for me, it became this thing where I realized that I got some of those things and I was still really unhappy. And I think it's because I was looking for an emotional change to my situation. And I realized that my emotions, one or not, I can't really trust them that much because I both feel happy and sad and anxious and excited and sorrowful in all different places of my life. And there are definitely times when it was bad situations where I was,
for sure,
joy was squandered, but I still found joy in those situations. So I think we chose the name Choosing Joy because it takes effort. Yeah. And it takes hard work. And you can either choose to continue to rehash why your life isn't good enough for you and why you're unsatisfied. And you can continue to say that it's because you don't have enough money, or because you don't feel as important, or because not enough people love you, or people aren't treating you right. But that's a very, I would say, like, passive reaction to choosing joy. You're basically choosing to be miserable is what you're choosing to do.
Right.
I'm going to be kind of blunt about it.
Focusing on those difficult things instead of what's there.
Right. And I think we would be not doing the topic justice if we didn't also acknowledge that true joy comes from knowing Christ, because he's the one that acknowledges those things in our heart and speaks to us, and who shows us what real joy is. I don't think we can really, otherwise we're just kind of analyzing ourselves. But on a wider topic, finding joy is really about looking for the things that are meaningful in life, and looking at our life and not just trying to measure everything.
Yeah.
Do I have the man? Do I have the car? Do I have the house? Do I have the kids? Do I have the etc.? So, Whitney, in what ways have you found joy?
I feel like I found joy after some difficult things have happened. We talk about the hardships. So recently, I bought this shirt that says "Choose Joy" because I have to remind myself to choose joy, and I love it. So I really like. We talk about Christ, and there's the verse in James 1:2-3. Count it all joy, brothers, and sisters, when we face trials, knowing that it leads to perseverance. And I think I'm quoting that right. But it's like in the midst of those trials, and sometimes it feels like it's after the storm, seeing what, again, I keep saying that, seeing what remains.
Yeah.
So I've found joy in my relationships. I've had loss of relationships. Divorce is something that has affected me. And I feel like it's easy for me to go to the place of, if I only had this relationship, if I only had a house, I'm in an apartment still, and that's okay. And seeing, like you said, there's all these things that I could want. And I think there's part of us that wants what we don't have, and some things are valid to want, but I've found joy in the people, my community, people who have been there with me through the trials. I think for a while I was into this stuff. Got a new camera, got this. I mean, I have so much stuff on my Amazon list of things I bought. I'm like, what happened to that thing? And recently being like, no, stuff is not gonna make me happy. I've never been much of a stuff person, but went through a season.
I am a stuff person.
And that's okay.
I'll tell you, for a stuff person, it doesn't make you happy either. It's a
No.
little bit more elusive,
Yeah, no, stuff is not stuff of joy.
No.
And so I think what brings me joy is being active, exploring. I enjoy hiking. I enjoy going to the mountains, going to the desert, being around people like you, my friend, who uplift me and encourage me, my family, just finding purpose in the season that I'm in, because sometimes the season we're in isn't the one we choose.
Yeah.
And that's really difficult. And we have loss and we have hardship. But I think it's easy for us to stay in that mode of woe is me.
Yeah.
I'm missing this, or kind of striving, looking for that contentment and happiness. But joy transcends all of that. Yeah. Joy ought to be in my life, under the surface, kind of keeping things going, that even when disappointments happen, I'm choosing to be grateful and to kind of stay in that mode, because it's easy to go into the mode of woe is me. But once I found myself getting out of that through community, through my relationship with Christ, through the activities that I enjoy, the easier it was to stay joyful.
Yeah.
So when I'm around people, there's people I'm around a lot who it seems like joy is harder for them. I see how kind of striving for that and the complaining that's happening. I think it's just so easy to do that. But I found I'm more at peace because I've said I'm going to be in the season that I'm in, and to choose joy and gratitude.
Yeah. I think that that whole thing about choosing joy too, it's not instant. Mm-hmm. It's a journey, and avoiding bad things from happening isn't. So the absence of bad things is not joy. Mm-hmm. It's not an opposite thing. Like I said, it's the other side. So it's really, I've noticed the most joyous times in my life is when something really bad happened, and instead of hiding under a blanket, which I do, Whitney's experienced it, I do actually hide under blankets.
There's a time for that.
There's a time for that.
Yeah, cocooning.
But just for like a day or two.
Yeah, not a lifetime. Not
But
months.
then communicating about what's going on with me. So there's like I always think it's like, there's the action where you're like, I'm going to hide under a blanket. I can't handle this. I'm going to stay in bed. I'm not going to face this. And then for me, the cure of that is telling somebody like, I'm going to hide under a blanket today and run away, okay? And the person's usually like, okay, that's fine. But eventually you need to come out. And I'm like, I just want to know. I don't want to come out. And I want to live in. Can you bring my meals to the blanket? I'm just going to live here.
I'll lift it up to eat and I'll put it back down. This is my home.
Yeah, and the part of that is letting other people in and in what's going on with you, to say like, I'm really depressed and I'm sad. And part of joy is being in the good and the bad, and being really present in both, and realizing that happiness has nothing to do with, like I said, being away from everything bad. Actually, when I've had really long periods of nothing going wrong, I kind of feel a little numb and like blah, like monotonous. Like I feel like I'm just kind of going through the motions. But real living is about the good, the bad, the ugly, walking through it. Yeah. When you're not walking through it well, grabbing a friend and talking about it, expressing yourself to others around you. And sometimes those bad times go for long periods. Sometimes you have 8 months where I've had periods of my life where like for 8 months I was just depressed, and every day I was walking it. Did it feel good then? Heck no. Did I think I was in joy? Heck no. I thought I was in, some of the worst times. And when am I going to get out of this funk? When am I going to feel good again? We're like these little feel-good seekers, and I'm in a good place right now, today. Right? I was in a bad mood a few weeks ago, but today I'm in a good place. Yes. So I can say, with hindsight, as my friend, saying like, those parts were really significant to the good times in my life. And choosing to walk through it, deal with it, talk through it, seek help when I needed it, either professionally or from those around me. Allow myself to be challenged by new ideas. Listen to sermons, go to church, have community. Don't just sit there and blah 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 during worship. Like really pour my heart out to God and pray and tell Him where I am and experience. Those are all, in my opinion, components of joy, because it's a multifaceted experience. It is not one thing.
I think and God meets us where we're at with that, and there's not like to say that we can't be sad. Like you're saying, those emotions are real. It's okay to cocoon for a day or a few hours, or even a couple weeks, or in my case, maybe a little bit longer. And I eventually had to get off the couch and stop watching Netflix.
Is very, selective to however bad your situation is.
Right. Cocoon. And then you go, okay, no more. But it doesn't mean I'm dismissing the sadness. Things are sad. Yeah. Loss, betrayal, hardship. Maybe people lose a job. Maybe someone dies. We have all of these really real life things that are happening to each one of us. We can't numb it. We have to walk through those. It doesn't mean that there's not a appropriate time to be sad. Sadness is not, it's completely appropriate. It's a normal emotion, but joy goes, I'm going to keep going because and acknowledging the sad. I think of like Inside Out. You and I both love that movie.
Oh, love that
and
movie.
How that moment of when sad touches the thing, the sphere, the ball thing. Yeah. And towards the end, and you see them kind of mixed together. Yeah. You see the yellow and the blue, and how you can't just isolate one thing and say only joy or only sadness. There's a mix of, not that we want sadness, but there's a mix of all of those.
Well, sadness brought the response of others to bring joy. Yes. It's a calling for others to come comfort.
Yes. The empathy moment with the imaginary friend. She says, like, that must be really difficult for you, or however she words it. And it's like this moment of Joy saw, like, wow, sadness isn't bad. It's a normal emotion. We can gracefully accept those and go, I'm sad, but I'm going to choose joy, which transcends these hardships. I think that's real. That's more real.
Yeah, and a life lived is more, I always think of it like, it's like a roller coaster. There's ups, there's downs, there's turns. And we always want to be in the good place because it just feels good. And you don't have all these heavy thoughts or things that you have to work through. But Nova's working through some things too. You pause it. And we're back. You may notice we actually pause frequently because Nova's making noise in the background. She needed a snack. So she's got her snack now and she's happy.
Sometimes we just need snacks.
And sometimes we need snacks. And I totally forgot what we were talking about. So we're going to jump to the next topic. And I think we kind of alluded this a little bit earlier, was finding joy in struggle and hardship. So we wrote down some topics like finding struggle in divorce, singleness, loss, betrayal, losing friends, losing family members. I can say for myself, when my mom passed away 2 years ago, there was that first year I felt really numb. And I really didn't know how to talk about it. And I felt like every time somebody came up and was like, how are you doing? And then they'd look at me with those big eyes.
Right.
And I feel like, oh my gosh, I have to have this like response. Like I should be probably crying right now. And like I felt like this high expectation to respond to them. And so it made it very difficult for me to share. And in that, I spent almost a year not including anybody in my struggle. And then I convinced myself that, like, nobody really understood. Nobody loved her like I did, so nobody else really understood what I was going through. And that made me feel really alone. And nobody missed her like I did, which was just unfair to say. But my mom was very difficult for the last, 15, 20 years of her life in a certain sense. And then very extremely difficult because of some illness problems for the last 2 years of her life where she shut everybody out. So, that first year was, I would say, I don't remember finding any joy in that year. I just remember kind of living it in a fog. But year 2 was a lot easier, and I started to learn how to talk about her and how to express myself and how to have those really deep, heartfelt moments, how to cry randomly. That was the biggest thing. Was like when somebody dies, sometimes it's like you don't get to choose when you're emotional about it. It just, you can see something reminds you of them and you just start to spiral. And really the important part, I would say, with loss is that you take that opportunity to spiral and have that moment with yourself. Because when you just shut it off because you don't want to cry in front of others, or you think what you're crying about is stupid or doesn't make sense, you just kind of miss this moment to, like I said, get to the other side. And so you get stuck. So I spent a year stuck, but year 2 is better. And I think this is almost, we're coming on year 3. I take a lot more opportunities to acknowledge things that remind me of her. And I find joy in that because then I remember the good things too, not just the really bad things. And that's hard when you're dealing with somebody with an illness at the end, especially the ones that make them mean, because you want to just label it, before you move on. So
it's difficult.
Whitney, where have you found joy in some of the hardship of your life?
Well, I think most recently, so something I'm not didn't expect to talk about was divorce, and so I think since then it's been it's been some time. It's been a few years, timeline wise, and so I think I really took my I talk about activity and health and hiking. I really took that seriously this last year especially, and I find joy in this season I'm in. I get to hike. I get to go to the gym when I want to. I get to have certain things as priorities. So for so long it was a big loss. It was unexpected in some ways, and it really rocked my foundation. That's why I love therapy. Helps me kind of get a good perspective of kind of where I'm at. And so I find joy in the season I'm in. I've talked to a couple single friends recently. And, there's that part of them. Some of them they've never been married. And some of them have been in long-term relationships. So I think what I've seen is, and nothing, the process that they're in, but it's this, I want to do these things with my person.
Yeah.
I think we all struggle with, or, we think about that, but I do really well on my own, so it's kind of maybe a little bit easier for me. But I love going on adventures and going on road trips and going camping and hiking. And sometimes I go with people and sometimes I go alone. So I found joy in this season of, I didn't expect this season of singleness, but kind of living it for what it is and babysitting people's babies and being there for friends through hard times. And I'm still showing up in my friends' lives, but I'm also not comparing my season, because it's easy to think, you know, people are starting to have, or they've been having babies and are in relationships, married. And I think it'd be easy for me to, at this point, say, I wish I had that. I'm 32. But instead, I believe it's totally Christ, because in that joy that's come from hardship, that's restored, I've then found purpose in this season where I can be present with people that maybe I wouldn't be able to as much, having other priorities, and being intentional with people, being intentional with my family, with my parents, spending time with them, and my friends and my sisters and my nieces and nephews. And I have a full life. I have this life that I didn't expect. And sometimes that happens to us. Sometimes we lose loved ones or we go through divorce. And it's hard, but I feel like they say live in your best life. That's what I'm doing. And I couldn't be more joyful, because this season has a purpose. I think any season that we're in where we're not where we want to be, we look at the other seasons people are in and think that must be happiness, that must be joy. And we kind of miss what's going on in this season. And I'm grateful to be in this season, though it was unexpected, to be where I'm at with the things that I have and the people that I have, and say, now what? I'm going to choose joy. I'm going to have a purpose for this season, however long it lasts. God knows I don't, and I'm not concerned. And I'm joyful. I'm really, really joyful.
And we all know people who have the husband, the marriage, the kids, and are really unhappy. Yeah. And I think it's because those are not the recipes for success. What you have isn't the recipe for success. I mean, I have a husband and two children. I'm not always happy. You know, I have plenty of reasons to find within that situation to feel unsatisfied. You know, I'm almost opposite, where I spend no time for myself, and the moments actually, this is one of the few things that I do for myself, and that's why I love it so much, because I'm usually trapped.
Yeah, like
usually not. I leave, but I'm always taking care of somebody. And that's the thing, is like, you know, in every situation there are parts that are difficult within that situation. Like, I'm always caring for someone. Sometimes my husband comes home and he's tired and he's like, hey, could you get, and I'm like, no, I have been taking care of people all day, and that's all I do, and I need you to do that. And no, he cooks me dinner actually most nights, because Lord knows I'm not very good at it. So he graciously makes most of my meals. Yes. When he's around. Oh my God, like this morning, he made me eggs. Magical eggs. So I was like, I want eggs.
I want bread.
I want bread and eggs. No, but there's a lot to be said about, you know, I think I've heard a lot of people say what they're looking for in life, and how they want this, and how this situation is just so hard. And again, it's not about your situation being easy or hard. There are plenty of examples in the world of people making the best of what they have. Yes. But you can have a really easy life and still have the challenge of making the best of what you have. Ease is not a direct translation to joy.
Yes.
It's actually opposite. So good. When you have nothing to push off of, there's nothing to feel. You don't feel anything. We went through a strange period of like 3 months where everything had been really hard, and then it was like super easy. And I thought that, you know, that really easy was going to translate to me feeling on top of the world, and it actually didn't. I have this theory. I'm going to tell you my theory.
I would love to hear it.
So, I have this theory about things lightening up, you know, things lightening up financially, things lightening up situationally, things lighten up, you know, about your life. So we went through a period where things lightened up on us for a little bit. And I noticed I was more anxious, more depressed, more feeling just like life had no luster. And from the outside, people could say, wow, look at all this great stuff. And look at what you got. Oh, it's so cool. And I was feeling kind of miserable. And Voss was not wanting to admit it at first, but he did too. And we both sat down and I was like, what is going on? I was so curious about, like, why do I feel so crappy?
Yeah.
I have every reason. There are so many things happening to me right now that are such good reasons to be happy, and I'm not. Yeah. And you know what it was? Is that before, when we were struggling a lot, I was so distracted by struggle and I was so preoccupied by struggle that I didn't really have time to think about what I was really feeling inside. And so the absence of all the struggle meant that I had to look at some of the deeper things that were happening with me, some of the really, really painful hurts that I'd never dealt with. And it was like all of a sudden I had all this stuff to think and feel, and that's when I started back in therapy. I decided to do something about it because I realized that it's not situational. It is and that's where I found a lot of people probably they find ease in life, and then they think, but if I buy that thing, then I'll buy the next thing, and then I'll buy the next thing. And you see people kind of start to fake it in life, and that's because they keep thinking the joy around the corner is just in that next thing or event or status. And we decided to stop and take a look on the inside and ask ourselves what was really going on. And it's been a hard journey, but it's been really rewarding. And I feel more joy now going through the hard days of looking at some of my past abuse that I went through, having to talk about it, really diving into the pain of it. I feel more joy now after walking through a little bit of it than I ever did before.
That's incredible. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with I will say this. There's nothing wrong with wanting things. There's nothing wrong with wanting a different season.
Or having
There's times
dreams.
where we might wish we were in a different season, and I've had moments of that. It's not like I'm completely immune to the wanting to have a person again, but I think you're right that we do strive for things and expecting that to bring us happiness, but in reality, we just don't necessarily feel that joy.
So one of the things we talked about as a counteractor to feeling dissatisfied is, I don't know why I said gratuity. Gratitude. Gratuity is something totally different.
Makes you happy too. Money, right? But gratitude. Yeah.
Whitney, why don't you talk about gratitude, not gratuity? We don't need to talk about that today.
No. So when I was thinking about joy, there was a connection for me with the word gratitude. So, when people leave, when we lose loved ones, when we feel betrayed, we become ill, we lose a job, remembering that there's still life left. And being grateful for that in the midst of the difficulty. Because I think now I look back and I think, how did I get through the storm? And I think it was day by day, but I think gratitude was the thing that led to joy. Because in the moment, I wasn't thinking, I'm going to choose joy even though I'm really sad and I just want to lay on my couch.
Right.
And, after work, it was like, go home, just kind of numb out.
Yeah.
And I kind of lost sight of what was left, and having this life before, and now kind of getting back into what is going on in this moment. And so I think there's this messy, uncertain life, but how do we have hope? And I think we can have that. And if I don't stay in that mindset of gratitude, then I do lean toward, well, if I only had this and this, then I would be happy. So do you feel like there's a connection for you? What do you think of the word gratitude? Just put it down.
Yeah, that was a harder word for me. I don't know why. Some of this joy stuff is hard for me, I think, because I get very me, I'm more like, hey, you gotta just get through it.
Yeah.
Motivation. I'm not like what were we saying earlier? You're more of like a encourager. I'm an encourager, but I'm like, work hard.
Motivator.
Yeah,
you're
I'm
a
a
motivator. I'm an affirmer.
Yeah.
We get to the
you're
same
like,
place.
You're worth it. And I'm like, you're worth it if you work hard. Show me you're worth it. I'm a little bit more, just say that's my perspective.
Know yourself.
Yeah. yourself.
Know thyself.
And I think that's just for me, because that's how I am. That's my mode.
Yeah.
Gratitude for me has meant not trying to look at my life and measure things, because I used to do that, try to like check some boxes, how am I doing health-wise, how am I doing financially, and there's sometimes where all those aren't doing that great, but it's not about that. I find the most gratitude in prayer, actually, when I pray. And I know there's so much stigma about prayer, and me and my husband even went through this time, we're like, does prayer even, like, was God going to do it if I didn't pray? Was he going to, there's always that weird time where you're like, wait, does it work? Did anything happen? Yeah. But I find that for me, it is it's a laying it down and just really surrendering it, I would say.
I love that.
Because I tend to dwell and I tend to rehash things and I tend to obsess a little bit about things. And when I pray, it's my way of saying to God, like, hey, I really don't know what's going on. I really don't know how to handle this situation, and I don't have the answers, but I know that you have the answers.
Yes. Yeah.
And probably the smartest thing I can do right now is let you have it. Because I am such an active person in my own life. I really just don't let things happen to me. I'm like a make things happen kind of person. For me, it allows me to give control over back to God.
Yes.
And that's when I usually find the most joy. And I notice that the situation doesn't have to change for me to change. The biggest change that happens is in my own heart.
Yes.
And my husband and I, whenever one of us is struggling really hard and we're finally talking about it, we'll always say to the other person, it's funny, we always catch each other off guard, like, I know somebody who you could talk to about this. And we're always like, who? Like, Jesus. And of course, we're like, yes, you're right. I know, you're right, Jesus. And then we're always like, do you want to pray with me?
Yes,
we sound like
I love
little
it.
kids. Do you want to pray with me? But it's so simple, and
it
takes away that burden and weight that it's our job to somehow figure out our own lives and get ahead of everything and try to, be like, okay, well, it's going to all be okay because I have this, or it's all going to be okay because, I have a plan, or no,
I'm in control.
Yeah, I'm in control.
I got this.
Or I know people. No, it's all going to be okay because actually it might not all be okay.
It might not.
But you're going to get through it because of who you know, and that's Jesus. And that's what's going to be all right about it. But there's no promise of the good. And that's the cool part. I think about gratitude and joy in knowing Christ is there's no promise that you're going to, the good thing. Oh, we prayed, and so now a good thing's going to happen. Because that's what God is, a magical fairy that we call upon when things are bad. And that's not it. He's going to walk and see you through it. And he's not that worried about you having a really great life, you being rich, or that's not what it is. He wants your heart.
He wants your heart, and
that's what he's after. And that's where I think real true joy is giving your heart over and letting him have it. And if that's something you're concerned about, you don't think you have, I would say like the simplest turn you make is to Jesus, because you don't have to, if you've been walking away for a while, you don't have to turn back and like retrace all those steps. It's not like, oh crap, I walked for a mile and I got to walk a mile. It is, no matter how far away you walk, it's an immediate turn to him, and he's right there. So
yeah, he walks with us in those difficulties because he's the key to our joy. Really, if we look around us and we see people striving and looking to things, that can only be found in Christ. And I love that your response to each other, your and Voss, is to just to turn to prayer. And I think that's something I think we all can grow in, is in that moment, are we talking about it more than we're surrendering that? Yeah. Because he's with us in those hard times. We look back and we're like, you were there. You were there with me. And there's that comfort. And you're right, it may not be okay. And sometimes we see those hardships happen. And he was with us through it. He allowed them to happen for whatever reason, but he's still with us, and he is our joy, at least for us. And I hope for people that are listening to seek that joy, because there's nothing else that can take that place. We can always look for things and people and look for happiness, but true joy, like you're saying, comes from Christ. I love that. As you're talking, I was like, doing this, like,
she was silently like, yes, so good. I wish you guys could see us sometimes because we say a lot of things without words in here. And
like doing a cheer. No, for real though, you dropped some major truth there. I love it.
So something that we wanted to end with is, so then all this we've talked about, Whitney, how do we measure our life? Because we tend to, in this world, try to feel happiness by measuring all the things in our life and checking off boxes and having the things and, doing the I will be happy when. My friend Joni, hey Joni, I do a lot of shout outs. She taught me the I will be happy when, and it's one of my favorite things that we talk about because she catches me doing it all the time. Like, oh, when that happens, is that when you're going to be happy then? Like, you're going to be real happy, huh? It's all the bad stuff's going away. And I'm like, no, it's not. And, because she's, I think, so when I look at measuring our life, I think of, okay, the measure of my life is not all the stuff I have. It's not, the fact that I have children or I have, all these things. Those are details about my life. That's Nova. She's really unhappy. No, she's fine. She's okay. She's not happy because she can't see me right now. Yeah. She's right around the corner.
She loves you. The best thing ever.
But the measurement is, it's really in the perspective I take about my life. Yes. Because I could easily... I know plenty of people who take the exact situation I have and complain about it and focus on the bad things, I've got these kids and I can't do anything and they're brats or they're, oh my gosh, my son just did this and my daughter just did that and I didn't get any sleep. And like those all things can be very true. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that that's the way you choose to see it. Yeah. The way, I lose a lot. Nova is doing some sleep regression right now, and I'm losing a ton of sleep. For sure. Like on a good night, I'm getting like 5 hours not grouped together on a good night. And,
that's rough.
And that's rough. And at first it was making me really agitated, and I was getting really frustrated with her. And then I realized, like, dang, I am so freaking blessed that in my life situation, I've got, kids getting up a lot, keeping me from sleeping, but I don't work full time anymore. So I am so blessed. If I have a rough night and I hardly slept, guess what? I can have a day where I take it a little easy. Mm-hmm. And I used to be a mom who worked full time, and I used to have to go to work on 3 hours sleep and just survive. So Nova's with us now. She was having a hard time, so she's joined us. Yes, she has a lot to say. But now I have the ability to take that, and in me, it was like, I'm so grateful. Not everybody gets to have that, and I'm so grateful. Yeah, I've got hard things about what I do, but I'm so grateful for this. Okay, Whitney, your turn.
Right. So I think that you are right, Alia, that the perspective is really the key. So the seasons that were, for me, the season that I'm in, the people in my life, my relationship with Christ, when I'm healthiest, I'm joyful seeing the my season for what it is, being grateful for the people in my life, opportunities to grow, and just knowing that regardless of what happens, I'm loved by the people in my life, by Christ, and that is life. It's not about things. It's not about the next thing that's coming. It's really about what's going on now. Mm-hmm. So I measure my life by the people, mm-hmm. the experiences I have, and the growth and the purpose that I feel in my job. And it's not about money. It's about I'm doing what I feel called to do, and that my identity in Christ is solid. And no matter what happens, I'm loved. And I think that's a hard place it's been a hard thing to get to. It's been a difficult process, but it's necessary for us to reflect and see what's there. And it's been hard for me, but I know in my heart that that's the answer, and that it feels kind of when you know it, when you feel it, you know it kind of thing. I don't know if you feel that way. Like when you're in it, you're like, yeah, this is what life is about. Forget all the things that have happened, all the things that I don't have. What is happening right now? Like your child sticking the pen in your mouth and being silly. Like, this is life right now.
Because I'm trying to keep her a little quiet for the end of this episode.
Sometimes you just are in it, and that's where the joy is, in the experiences that we're in, even if they're not glamorous.
They're not. And even in this, in this recording, it's not ideal to have a 1-year-old in the background of most of your... Sorry, she wants to put the pen back in my mouth. It's her game right now. It's not ideal to have a 1-year-old. And we talked about this, like, I'd love to have a babysitter. If you want to come babysit my child while we record, I would feed you. I'll feed you food. But, it really, a lot of us like, let's keep it real.
Yeah.
I'm a mom. That's what I am. I didn't want to do a show about motherhood because...
Right.
I'm not just a mom. And I think that when you become a mom, there's this, like, tendency to just be like, I'm just going to identify as a mom. No, I'm a woman, and this is part of my life situation. I am a mother, but that's not the only thing that defines me.
No.
And if I try to only find joy in being a mother, then anytime my child messes up or isn't perfect,
oh my gosh.
and I've tried doing that, and you're so disappointed. When your child's like ahead of the curve, you're like, yeah, thank you, I made a genius.
I'm the best mom ever. Give me
and then when you make mistakes, you feel like, everyone should just poop on you, and like, you don't want to you feel like burying yourself. And so I decided to do something like, you know what? I am a person who has children, and that's not all. That's not the only thing that defines me.
Yes,
it is something that affects my life daily. Currently, right in this very second, my child is affecting me right now. But it is part of my life. It is not my life because I have other things. She's growling. Anyways, so what's our challenge this week, Whitney? What should we challenge? I'm going to challenge nobody.
See what's around us and find gratitude in that, because then we'll find our joy. We'll see the people and the experiences we have, and even if they're messy and there's things that happen. Last week we talked about communication, and when difficult things happen with people around us and life isn't what we expect, to choose joy, to say, I'm grateful that I'm here. I've showed up. And I'm in this moment, and I'm going to grow. Mm-hmm. That's what I say.
I like it. So next week, we have a special week. We have our first guest.
Oh, my gosh.
It's my husband. It's nobody. It's no one famous.
No.
It's famous to me.
Yes.
But, so Voss is going to be on next week as our special guest. Whitney will be away from us. Yes. Very sad, we're going to miss her.
Be on vacation.
But I'm on vacation.
Here in spirit.
So stay tuned. We're not 100% on the topic yet. We're still, him and I are still working that out. But I'm really excited to have our first guest, because, I don't know, it's going to change the tone a little bit. And it'll be a totally different type of topic, because we are in a relationship, husband and wife, and so our topic's going to come from that. So, anyways, have a great week, you guys.
Yes.
And stay tuned. Subscribe, like our page, comment,
share.
Oh, yeah, share. Because there's so many people who would love to listen to something like this.
Yeah.
So, share it. Grow. Challenge yourself. All of the above.
All of the above.